best only when they are squeezed.
Dr. Tony Evans says that's why tough times are inevitable, even if we're right in the center of the Lord's will.
God's purposes includes trials.
This is The Alternative with Dr. Tony Evans, author, speaker, senior pastor of Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship in Dallas, Texas, and president of the Urban Alternative. Even if your life looks as clear as a summer day right now, you can count on the fact that sooner or later, a storm is going to pass through. Let's join Dr. Evans as he talks about what to do when that happens.
A trial is an adverse circumstance that God either allows or he may bring into the lives of his children in order to deepen their faith and commitment to him. Trials can be caused by any number of factors. They can simply be caused because you're living in a cursed world and the overflow of that curse affects you, such as getting sick or being in a war and various repercussions of those human realities rub off on you. A trial can be brought directly from the devil, a direct satanic attack or one of his surrogates, demons. A trial can be the result of failure relating to a temptation. That is, you allowed your flesh to be controlled, to acquiesce to evil, and therefore sinned, bringing negative repercussions that can be transferred into a trial if it can be used by God to deepen your commitment to him. My concern today is not so much the source of your trial, no matter where it has come from, because the bottom line issue is not where did it come from, it is what are you doing with it now that it has come? How are you addressing your trials? Now, if you are a Christian, you are going to have trials. Fact is, if you're human, you're going to have trials. The difference is that trials in the life of Christians are purposeful. They're not just pedantic. They're not just events that are randomly occurring without meaning and purpose. Jesus has just done a marvelous miracle. He has taken 5 barley loaves and 2 fishes, had a word of prayer of them, and wound up with Orca the killer whale on the beach. He has fed 5,000 men, not counting women and children, somewhere between 15 and 25,000 people. What a miracle. We ended last time noting that John's rendition of this event says that when the people saw him do this miracle, they decided to make him king. Anybody who can take loaves and fish and turn them into a Moby Dick sandwich ought to be in charge. But Jesus was not about to be a welfare king. He was not willing to be elected simply to service the agenda of men. He was not simply willing to be recognized because of the goodies he could hand out. He's King of Kings, Lord of Lords. He deserves to be king because he is king. This led to an event in the life of the disciples that's recorded in Matthew, Mark, and John. Luke does not record this event. I want to look at 2 places where it is recorded. I want to start off in Matthew, and then we'll end up in the scripture that was led in your hearing. Matthew 14 tells the same story, but Matthew gives us a little bit more detail than does Mark. Because Matthew concerns himself not only with the event as it affected collectively the disciples, but also as it affected one disciple in particular, our good friend Peter. First of all, the authority of Christ controls the existence of trials. That he is in charge of the fact that they exist. Please note in verse 22 of Matthew 14 we read, "And immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side while he sent the multitudes away. And after he had sent the multitudes away, he went up to the mountain to pray, and when it was evening, he was there alone, and the boat was already many stadia away from the land, battered by the waves, for the wind was contrary. The disciples are going through a trial. They leave the feeding of the 5,000. They wind up in a boat, and the boat is now in a storm, causing great havoc. They are in a negative circumstance of life. I know that when I look out on an audience this size, for some of you, it's sprinkling. For others, it's raining. Others of us are in a downright storm. It says that the weather was contrary to them. They were rowing this way. The storm was pushing this way. In fact, we're told by Mark that when they put their oars in the water, it was of no use because the opposition to their every effort was horrendous. They were in a negative situation. But I want you to notice something here. The first thing I want you to notice is that Jesus made his disciples, verse 22, get into the boat. Now, the concept behind the word made here is the concept that that was not something that they had in mind doing. They did not have in mind getting into a boat. Why? Because they have heard the ring of the crowd. And the crowd, when they saw the feeding of the 5,000, have said, that's the man. You the man. We want you to be king. That had spread over the whole crowd. The disciples had fed the crowd. They had moved among the people. So they were very well aware that the people were concluding, let's make Jesus king. And for them, that wasn't a bad idea. But you know, Jesus would always do this. Every time he had a shot to go public, he'd talk about going somewhere private to pray. Finally, Jesus, because he had been going around saying, I'm king, I've come to be king of the Jews, I'm your king. It dawns on the disciples, this is it. We've got the whole crowd. Everybody's on our side. Finally, we're in the in group now. Let's go for it. It says Jesus made them, forced them to go to the other side. Jesus knew that it wasn't all it was cracked up to be, even though there was a lot of crowd. And I think all of us know that you can't necessarily follow the crowd because they'll applaud you one minute and crucify you a few weeks later. They didn't have all the information that Jesus had. Now, why is this important that Jesus made them go into the boat? It means that Jesus, knowing they were going into a storm, put them in it anyway. Point, they were in a trial and at the same time in the will of God. Jesus made them go into the boat. To put it another way, obedience does not negate obstacles. You can be perfectly in the plan of God and be in a storm. They were right where God wanted them to be because he made them go. Some of you here today are in forced situations. Situations that you had no control over. Situations that overwhelmed you. Situations you got caught in. And to the best of your knowledge, you were in the will of God when you got in the situation. So were the disciples. They were 3.5 miles out, we're told by John. They're being battered by the waves. They're being beaten up. And if you're in a trial today that's beating you up, and Jesus put you there, then there is no contradiction to being in the will of God and being in a storm. Because God's purposes includes trials. James 1:3 says, count it all joy, my brethren, when you come into different kinds of trials. Count it all joy, knowing that when it happens to you, it happens for a reason. Now, these guys are doing the best they can. They're rowing. They're struggling. They're trying to handle through their oars the opposition. They're doing the best they can, but it's not working. I wonder if there's anybody like that here. You're doing the best you can. You're trying. Mark says they were rowing. They were rowing. They were trying to do what they could, but the more they rowed, the further back they went. Anybody like that here? You're trying. You're really trying, and you're really sincere, but you're going nowhere. Don't forget, Jesus made them get into the boat. Verse 25 says, it was in the fourth watch of the night he came to them. The fourth watch is 3 to 6 in the morning. So before dawn, he comes to them. Why did Jesus make them go to the other side when he could have kept them on the shore, since he would know that there's a storm coming up? That's what trials are. Trials are designed to find out whether you really believe what you say you believe. Jesus lets them go 3.5 miles out, let them use all their human effort, let them try everything within their power to try, and see all of that fail. So we're going to really find out, do you believe God? Or do you just talk about believing God when you're around Christians? That's just part of your evangelical testimony. You see, sponges work best only when they are squeezed. And God allows, for his own sovereign purposes, his children to be squeezed that we might find out who we are, and better yet, find out who he is. All of us in school were tested. At the end of a section of studies, at the end of a semester, at the end of the school year, we were given a test. And if there was a caring teacher, the test would be fair. It would always be over information already taught. In other words, if you had a fair teacher, they would not test you over things you had not gotten yet. You would complain about that. Teacher, you've not taught us that yet. Jesus had just taught them. Guys, I can take nothing and make something of it. Jesus had just taught them. I can take a little and do a lot. Jesus had just taught them. Nothing is impossible with me. Jesus had just taught them some great truths, and now he made them go out into a storm.
But we can find safety and security even in the middle of the storm. And Dr. Evans will tell us about that when he continues our message in just a moment. First, though, don't miss your chance to get a copy of Tony's current CD collection, The Authority of Christ. It's packed with assurance that God is more powerful than anything and everything life can throw at you, including disasters, disease, and even death. We'll be glad to send you all 8 messages in this collection as our gift, in appreciation for your contribution of any amount, large or small. The only way we're able to keep Tony's teaching on this station is through the faithful support of listeners just like you. Please don't assume that somebody else is going to meet that need. Get in touch today and let Tony know he can count on your help. Visit tonyevans.org, make your donation online, and let us send you the CD series, The Authority of Christ. That's tonyevans.org, or call 1-800-800-3222. That's our resource request line, and it's open 24/7, so there's no need to wait. Again, dial 1-800-800-3222. Well, now let's get back to our message. Here's Dr. Evans.
That leads to a second point, and that is that the authority of Christ encourages us through our trials. Now, the authority of Christ controls the fact we're in them in the first place. And even if you're in a trial because of a sin, it's the authority of Christ that controls the repercussions you face. And so the key is turning that temptation into a trial through your commitment or recommitment to the will of God. He says in verse 25, and it was in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the water. Now, I got to get a playback of this one in glory. This is not just somebody walking in water. We're talking about walking in water in a storm. So you've got billows going all over the place, the wind rushing, Jesus walking. He's walking on the water. It's had to be a sight. It's still dark. Now, what does this tell us about Jesus? Jesus, they're 3.5 miles from shore, from the shoreline. But Jesus wasn't on the shoreline. Jesus had gone up into a mountain to pray. You ever feel like when you're in a trial, Jesus is on a mountain somewhere? Huh? You ever feel like when you're in a trial, I don't need Jesus on a mountain. I need him in the middle of the storm. No, Jesus wasn't just on a mountain. He was on a mountain talking to God on their behalf. As the scripture says in Hebrews chapter 4, we do not have a high priest that is not touched with our infirmities. He was on the mountain knowing that he had to leave them out there on their own in order for them to learn what he wanted them to learn. But he wasn't up there doing nothing. Jesus is not right now sitting on the right hand of the Father doing nothing while you struggle. You say, well, it seems like it. Of course, you're in a storm. And when you're in a storm, it's going to seem like you're all by yourself. Now, he didn't come when they wanted him. Hello. But he was there on time. What does this tell us about Jesus? Number one, even though he's in a mountain many miles away, he knew what was going on. Okay? Not only did he know what was going on, omniscience, but he also saw what was going on, and having seen what was going on, he decided after his prayer meeting with the Father to go for a walk. Now watch this. They are made to get in the boat after they feed the 5,000. They fed the 5,000 between the watch that went from like 4 to 6, 3 to 6 in the afternoon. It is now 3 to 6 in the morning. So for 12 hours, these guys are out here struggling. For 12 hours, they're out there hurting, wondering whether they're going to live or die, and Jesus is on a mountain praying. But at the right time, they look up and see a ghost. Look at verse 26. And when the disciples saw him walking on the water, they were frightened, saying, it is a ghost. The Greek word saw means to stare intently at. The Greek word for ghost is the word where we get our English word phantom. It is the word phantasmos. It means phantom. That's where you get ghost. It meant a creature of the imagination. You remember that song, Just Your Imagination Running Away With You? Their imagination started to run away with them. And as a result, they said it's a ghost. Now watch this. They got one problem, right? They're in a storm. Now they got another problem. They got to deal with Casper in the storm. And of course you're going to think it's a ghost. Nobody walks on water, number one. Nobody certainly walks on water in a storm. But they see this figurine coming their way, and they say, it's a ghost. Listen, folks. What appeared like problem number 2 is really bad when you see a ghost and 11 other guys see a ghost too. Okay, so see, when you get this group ghost thing, then you know something strange is going on. But get this, their second problem was their solution. What they saw as horrible was going to be their help. If you're in a storm, hold on a little while longer. You say, but it's getting worse, but that worse may be your answer. You say, but I'm having to fight off a ghost. It may be Jesus showing up, but you can't see it because you're in the storm. Yeah, I know it was nighttime, and I know it was dark, and they couldn't see, and the waves were making the sight cloudy. But hang in there a little while longer because it may be Jesus, and you just don't know it yet. He calms their horror when he says to them in verse 27, take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid. Brothers and sisters, there is no storm you're in that Jesus can't find you. Okay? And if he can walk on water, that means the elements can't stop him from getting to you. So no matter what you are facing and how bad it is, Jesus can walk on it. See, the beautiful thing is that the storm was consuming the disciples, but they only were a bridge for Jesus. The same things that were hurting the disciples became his footpath. The same trial was his opportunity to do his thing. That's why you count it all joy. You don't count it all joy because you're in the storm. You count it all joy because you're going to get to see Jesus walk on it. You're going to see Jesus, in spite of all that's going on, at his time, walk on the storm. So Jesus honored their obedience because he made them go and they went, even though they were in a storm. And the key, no matter why you're in the storm, is to begin to live an obedient life so he can walk on the storm and get to you. Please notice, take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid. He addressed their inner storm before he addressed their external storm. He didn't first say, peace, be still. He first said, gentlemen, hearts, calm down. God wants to fix what's wrong inside before he ever fixes what's wrong outside. Because what he's after is your commitment to him. He's not just after changing your financial status. He's not just after getting you a better job. He's not just, see, that's the problem with our prayers. All we see is the external. When what Jesus wants you to say is, show me Jesus. Let me see who you are. And if you only want the external change, but you're not passion for the internal relationship, Jesus says, take courage. Let me encourage you. He doesn't change the external circumstance until he first changes their internal condition. Don't be afraid. There's a lot to be afraid of today, but don't. He gave them security even though the storm is still going on, but they found solace in the fact that Jesus was there. That's all you got to know. If it's not God's will to end the storm, at least know Jesus is there. Because if you're in a storm and he's not there, then you're in trouble. It can make a difference when the right person shows up. To pass your trial is the fastest way to get where you're trying to go. To pass your trial is the fastest way to get where you're trying to go. John 6:21 says, telling the same story, and when he got in the boat, they looked up and they were on land. It says, verse 33, and those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, you are certainly the Son of God. That's the bottom line.
Dr. Tony Evans, talking about how the authority of Christ brings us safety and security, even in the middle of our toughest times. If you'd like to review this lesson on your own or share it with someone else, we have copies available. Just contact us about the title, The Authority of Christ Over Trials, or mention today's date, and we'll know how to help you. But this message is just one of 8 full-length lessons in our current CD collection, The Authority of Christ. As I mentioned earlier, the complete set is yours with our thanks when you make a donation, any donation, to help us keep Tony's teaching on this station. But don't wait, this special limited-time offer runs out on Friday. Contact us today at tonyevans.org to get the details and make the arrangements. Or call 1-800-800-3222 any time of the day or night and let one of our staff members help you. That's 1-800-800-3222. Well, tomorrow, more insights from Dr. Evans on surviving life's tough times, including a look at why trials help us enlarge your view of God. Be sure to join us. The Alternative with Dr. Tony Evans is brought to you by the Urban Alternative and is made possible by the generous contributions of listeners like you.